You have no shortage of ideas for your product. Neither do your customers. Every single day brings a new request, a new must-have feature, a new option, and an opinion on what you should build next. But building the wrong thing can cost you time, money, trust, and sales. The right product feedback loop can turn that chaos into clarity, guiding your roadmap, strengthening your product, and keeping your customers coming back. Today, we're going to be talking about how to capture the right feedback, make sense of it, and use it to drive your product forward. Welcome to WP Product Talk.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights in product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zach Katz with Gravity Kit.
And I'm Ian with Kestrel.
And today we're talking about how to handle feature requests.
And that's why we've invited Robbie and Justin from Beaver Builder here. Robbie, Justin, can you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, Justin, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'm Justin, co-founder and developer at Beaver Builder. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I'm Robbie. I'm also a co-founder and more on the marketing side at Beaver Builder as well.
So thanks for joining us. We have known about Beaver Builder for a long time. Y'all have been around for a very long time, and I imagine the landscape has changed from when you launched to now, and that a lot of features have been added. How have you prioritized products at Beaver Builder internally? Like, what is your process? Let's jump right into this.
Yeah, I can start there. I guess it all just comes with that ticket coming into the help desk and feature requests, and that's what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, there's just like tons of channels that stuff comes through. Might be a Slack DM or something Facebook post or just so many places. So, I guess the process starts by just, kind of collecting feedback and internalizing it. And from there, a lot of it's just like conversations, whether it be internally with other customers, maybe even throw it in the ChatGPT these days and see what it recommends. But yeah, a lot of conversations really to kind of figure out what you want to decide. But I think too, part of that process is understanding your customer and your segments, so you can see like what where like a feature request might fit. But yeah, that's like kind of maybe the quick version of that.
So you say that they come in from your help desk, and I imagine there are other areas where you get feature requests coming in, and I'd love to address those as well. But like, what is the actual process that you have for taking a feature request and turning, like, where do you put it? Where
sure.
Like,
yeah. I mean, we'll use GitHub. We have GitHub project is like a big, like part of the internal thing for tracking that. And customers can leave feature requests there too. And we have like a Slack channel where that kind of stuff just filters into, so we can kind of go there and review it, whoever wants to see what's the latest. But that's where that kind of starts, is getting it kind of trashed into GitHub and project and taking it from there.
It's great when the feature requests that we like get are also things that were on our radar, or even better if it was something we were already working on. And we try to like keep kind of open communication around what we're currently doing and like ideas we have and places we'd like to go, and sort of do a bit of a feedback loop. But yeah, it's always like perfect when someone is really like gung ho about something that we've been working on behind the scenes, and we get to kind of, be like, hey, like that's coming. And if you can, help us test it, like get on the beta, let us know if you find any bugs.
Yeah, it's actually one of the struggles that we've always had, is knowing, if that's something that, how does it align with the plans for the project? Like, how does it align with what you plan to do for growth? So how do you communicate with your team, like what's a good feature request versus we've heard that, but we don't intend to do it. Like, what's your method for differentiating between those two?
I think like low hanging fruit is always fantastic. I mean, it's funny, Justin, you mentioned like ChatGPT, and I was like thinking about our history of feature requests over the years, and it didn't really come to my mind, but like the big one this year is like, AI. Like AI just like took off like a rocket ship and became a household term. So it went from, no one asking for AI features to like, excuse me, everyone asking for AI features. And yeah, that was a tricky one, right? Because we didn't want to just like drop everything we were working on just to like jump on a buzzword train. But then on the other hand, like I think we all started using a lot more AI this year in our, personal and professional, like using it outside of the product to better enable our work. So yeah, again, it's like a balancing act of like continuing to build the things that we'd already planned and that we had progress on versus with some big bombshell drops, like trying to prioritize how important that is, how much value it's going to add to our product and our space, and how much like resources we have to allocate to make it happen.
Yeah, that's one of the things we struggle with at Gravity Kit, because we have a bunch of different products, and each of them have feature requests associated with them, and each of them have different value to the company. And Gravity View is our biggest product in terms of the amount of revenue, and then also the product ideas. But we also want to keep on moving every single other product forward. Then we have new initiatives, and we have new like overall strategy. So at Gravity Kit, we have a grading system that I'm not happy with, but it's what we're currently using in terms of the priority from the business standpoint. Like, how important is this for the business revenue? How important is this for for the product itself? Like, how much better will it make this product? But if and then also how hard it is to implement. And we try to combine those into a score. I think there might be like one or two different items as well, and then kind of sort that by like how impactful is this to the business overall. In a GitHub project currently right now is how we're structuring all that, and it's a mess because we have like hundreds of issues in GitHub. And one of our co-hosts, Katie Keith, asks, how do you differentiate between feature requests you actually plan to implement, as GitHub is often used for planned tasks as well? So like where it all comes together is GitHub for us, but it also means that we're potentially overwhelmed by like all the different things that are going on in GitHub, and it's hard to really focus on what's coming up next.
Yeah, I can add to that. I feel you on like it becoming overwhelming. I think like any kind of like feature request tracking becomes overwhelming. Like we used to do the user voice and upvoting. That's got its own challenges. So, I really I kind of look at that kind of like the GitHub or user voice or whatever it may be. It's just kind of like one point to like kind of help you like reinforce, maybe like Robbie said, like when, I love when we're working on something and then like a bunch of feed or requests come in for it. And we're like, okay, that's like reinforcing what we're working on. But yeah, I mean, like we're kind of loose about probably like how we track feature requests and stuff, because like, I don't know how like helpful like one of those things is just on its own. Like you need the whole feedback loop and like kind of go around in circles for let things even marinate. Like, sometimes like feature requests feel like, oh, we need to rush on this. Like we need to jump on this. But I've bitten myself in the foot with that. Like, I'm like, oh, we have to do this. Like, let's drop everything. And then like a couple months later, it's like, why are we even working on this again? No one seems to care. That was just like a vocal, kind of subset of customers. So yeah, no, I agree with you on it being a mess. I kind of use it as like one kind of place to look and to kind of like take a temperature, and then, from there kind of start going through the process of having conversations, looking at, open issues. I love what you said about value to the business, 100%. Sometimes there's even small feature requests that come in that I know could like, be done quickly, but like we get so many of those that next thing you know, we've got a developer that's just working on small feature requests for like weeks, and I'm like, does this really move in the needle? Like, did we need this? So yeah, just want to
that needs QA and dev time, and
right. then we
and
broke something and created
documentation.
bugs, and it's so got to be careful there.
Yeah, well, that's as far as the cost of investing in any path, right? There's always, you're not doing something when you choose to do anything. So, would you mind sort of elaborating on one of those times where you've spent time going down a path where you've regretted it? Like, what did you learn from that? How did you adjust your processes as a result? Like, would you mind sharing an example of that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. Off the top of my head, I don't know if I have a specific example because I've gotten. I mean, like you said, we've been around for a while, so I've gotten better at it. That was more in the earlier days when I just thought we had to do everything. But yeah, like there is this really just like taking my time on things now, I think is the biggest thing. Like for me is just like when something comes back and I have that feeling like it's important, I kind of take a step back and don't rush into things. So I mean, that was like my personal journey there, really, is just like not rushing into stuff and to really gather more feedback on the feedback is really where that starts now.
I'm always worried about getting caught in bureaucracy rather than just getting done. And I know that sometimes if I take the amount of time that it takes to create a proper spec and like who we're building this for, why we're building it, like what the outcomes will be, how we measure success. These are all things, if you're listening, these are all things that you probably should do. But as a developer and somebody who's not patient, I would just rather take that time and actually build the thing and then have it done. But then that can lead to product bloat, and you might regret releasing something that you built because it actually isn't helpful.
I see that a lot with like there's the things that are like fun to build and that are flashy and that are going to market well. Like from the marketing side, we're always kind of pushing for the stuff that we can like create noise about. But then there's like one of those features. I wonder, Justin, if this was your experience. Like we recently released an update where we like restructured and refactored a lot of the external code that Beaver Builder produces to make it a lot more efficient. Like we removed a lot of wrapper divs and like the number of lines of code that Beaver Builder produces. And like, that was a big engineering role. Like that required a lot of work behind the scenes to do. And it's one of those things that isn't necessarily like, in the marketing squad, we weren't like, hey, we did still, but it's like, if you didn't know any better and you were just building like day to day with Beaver Builder, it wasn't something like, oh, a new, this or that, or a new module, something that you can like see and touch. It was all sort of behind the scenes.
Right. That's another aspect is the value to the business, but also how flashy is it? That is another measurement. Like how much can marketing promote this, and how is it a buzzword? Will it check off a box in a customer's checklist of like what they're looking for in a product?
Yeah, we've experienced too, like Justin mentioned earlier, kind of understanding the customer. We've always had sort of a wide range with Beaver Builder being like a no code visual builder. We had sort of the DIYer types that were maybe small business owners or people who needed a website that kind of found their way to WordPress and then to us. But then also like really I think our core customer base is more on the professional side, like freelancers and agencies. And so trying to balance like how much complexity do we want to surface in the UI, and how do we want to do that in a way that, one of the things that a lot of people use Beaver Builder for is to build a site for a client, then hand that site off to the client and enable them to make their own, changes, updates, changing images and headings and things like that. So trying to find that balance point between like having the power and flexibility to build whatever you want, but not overwhelming someone who's maybe not as technical that needs to get in there and just use a website as their day-to-day job.
Right. And that conflict between for whom are you building is related to a question from Nick, who asks, similar to prioritizing across products, how do you handle prioritization of new work versus maintenance and fixes? Or do you treat those as separate work streams? Because when you're trying to build new functionality, how does that fit into your prioritization matrix? if you have one?
It's definitely separate streams for sure. Or I mean, it depends on. I mean, we're still a small company. So I mean, I kind of imagine, if we were Elementor or something, we'd have multiple teams, and there'd be the bug fix team and all that. But we're all kind of got our hands in different things. But for sure, there's like, if someone's working on something that's like, we're like, we have Beaver Builder 3 we're working on right now. Like, people working on that are just working on that. And then people working on other stuff might be smaller update features and all that kind of stuff, but they'll take on some bugs too, type thing. But yeah, I definitely try and have some focus for sure.
Yeah, I'd actually love to dig into that a little bit with what Robbie said about, you got rid of a lot of divs and lines of code and all that, and how that's not super flashy, but when it comes down to it, that does make your product significantly better, especially for like that agency audience that notices and cares and all that. What pushed you guys over the threshold of doing that, right? Because it is hard to get new users because you've done it. So what finally, what feedback, what mechanism got you to the point where that became the right big project for you?
Well, that actually kind of overlapped with like a few different things we were working on. We've certainly taken some inspiration from the block editor and how we're doing things, and really, like, I mean, not to get like too technical, but like the way that they, each block is like an element, sort of speak, rather than like some sort of block wrapper and things like that. But yeah, kind of like re-architecting our system in a way. Like we do everything in a backwards compatible way. So like there's still like, we did all the primitive elements basically to make them, lighter, if you will. But yeah, there's definitely some like long-term architectural decisions that kind of like, we want to do these things, that's going to be part of it type thing. And then, just hearing over the years of page builder bloat and markup and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not like we didn't know that was there. So
I have a question for y'all, because I just had this experience recently where a customer asked how to do something with Gravity View, and they shared what they wanted to do, and it was just completely not what they should be doing, like how they should be handling it. It should not be like, maybe even with Gravity View at all. When customers provide solutions or propose solutions, like, if you could implement this feature, I could do X. And it turns out I think it's actually called the XY problem. If you look it up on Wikipedia, like, they're describing a problem that shouldn't be solved by your product, or it should be solved completely differently. Or like, how do you make sure that you're solving the right thing?
So that immediately reminds me of Z-index, right? Justin will probably laugh, right? Yeah. So going back to the idea of like, we were using user voice, we're using like a community platform where people could upvote and downvote features, and like, one of the reasons we like stopped doing that was because it became this platform where people would kind of like either not complain, but they would, like, Z-index was the top voted feature for the longest time, and people, were upvoting like, oh yeah, Z-index, we want to be able to like layer things on the page, but Z-index is like a complicated CSS spec. What is it? Element? I actually don't remember the name.
Rule.
Rule. Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, like, if just adding a Z-index field was not going to accomplish what people wanted,
Right.
and it
Just
was also
do this. Yeah. That
potentially going to interfere with like our
add
models.
another dimension to your layout builder.
Yeah. Like, what people really wanted was layering, but what they were calling it was Z-index, and there was all of this like discussion around that on user voice, like, oh, why don't you just add? It's just a simple field, just add Z-index, and we're like, no, it's not. Like, it's not that easy.
So we've had episodes about this on WP Product Talk before, but it's like one of the issues that is good to cover is like, okay, so you have a bunch of customers who have upvoted Z-index and say, all I want is Z-index. How do you turn those customers into a user group that you could interview and find out if what your proposed idea is, if it would actually solve their problem? Like, how do you go from Z-index to layering in a way that actually addresses the needs and that your customers have?
I mean, it's a tricky one. I guess we have the benefit of getting to be a little opinionated with some of those things. Like, I think, for Z-index, we ultimately just said no. Like, this is not something that we're going to build. But and furthermore, like, maybe like you think you. I feel like this famous line in like the gaming world: you think you want it, but you don't. You think you do, but you don't. We get to have some opinions on like one of the other big requests is like more animation options, when you're scrolling down, things wiggling and shaking or fading in and out. And
Right.
we've always kind of taken the stand of like, it's a fun idea, it's fun to talk about, but you really don't want that. There was like a really good tweet I saw about this too. It was like, if having like a shaking checkout button or fading animations on a page actually increased conversion and increased value, you'd see Amazon and Netflix, like all the big players would be using them.
It increases stress, I can tell you that.
Yeah, right. To get back to your question though, I think like one of the things we try to do is look at who's making the requests and put a higher emphasis or priority on requests coming from power users. We just released a components feature in our latest update, and one of our major kind of power user evangelists was like a big proponent of this feature of being able to. I won't get too deep into the weeds, but yeah, like looking at who makes the feature request and prioritizing those based on how much experience they have with the product and where they're coming from with that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of this at Kestrel also, right? And actually, I'll use Checkout WC as an example where at one point, we've introduced, abandoned cart recovery as a feature because it's, one of the easiest ways it makes a difference it's a small feature that does a lot. But then it sort of implied that we should start going down this path of doing like marketing automation and all the things related to it. So we've created an entire pool of feature requests that aren't really what the core product is for. And it's put us in this position of like disagreeing with our customers, or, we're sending them to other solutions ultimately instead, right? But have you had those sorts of problems where, you've implemented something and you've now created the feature requests?
Yeah, I can take that one. Which is maybe one of those things I rushed into way back when. We have like a subscribe form module. And we try and like, I mean, like I know other builders have like full form solutions and stuff, and if they want to do that, that's fine. But like we added the subscribe form module with like some integrations like MailChimp and this and that. And then just over the years, it's like all the integration requests, APIs breaking, APIs updating features. It was like this one feature has been a pain, and maybe we should have just left that to the people doing, subscription forms and things like that. So
or Gravity Forms, I can recommend.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has been great. People like use it a lot, and and for a lot of different things. Like it's definitely like useful, and it's not like we just have a few customers, but still, for as much overhead, like like it's like I think Ian, you hit the nail on the head. Like we need to ask ourselves, like, is that direction we want to go with the product? Like if we're going to get into that kind of stuff, then yeah, we could go into marketing automation and things like that. So definitely, yeah. I think it's okay to say no for sure, and just kind of draw a line in the sand because there are other parts of the product that are probably more important over the long run.
And how does your team, like, how does all of our teams handle the process of testing out what works and like proving whether or not something is viable as like coming up with an MVP, seeing if like handing it off to customers, saying no if it's not really working? Like, how do we address that?
We haven't. I don't know that we've gotten that far and then said no. Maybe we've pulled some stuff out, but we've like over the years, like we've gotten like a really good like we call it like a dev release, and then it goes to alpha and beta and RC and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of fun because like the dev is like no pressure, like the dev release, like the alpha beta, then you're like, okay, we've committed and this is going to be coming out. But I mean, we'll like, all right, we're ready for a dev release. It has bugs. We don't care. Like people want to try it. And like, then that builds some excitement for what we're working on. I mean, granted, if it's like a tentpole feature, I'm sure we didn't have that many people testing out when we removed divs, but Yeah. No, we're really fortunate to get some excitement early on for the things we're working on, or at least the big stuff, and that helps shape it too with these dev releases we do, and they can go on for a couple months too. Well, it's kind of like we're developing and kind of tandem with our customers helping us test it. And internal, it works great for internal testing too, because not everyone's pulling from Git. So we can just go throw builds to the team, and anybody on the team can install, update, and get the latest stuff we're working on.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in too, is that this is an area where my answer has maybe changed a little bit over the years. I definitely used to say, just write the code, submit some stuff, get it out there, and people will tell us what they like and what they don't like. I think nowadays, though, we still do that kind of prototyping, but it's usually based on, an accumulated list of feature jobs to be done from support requests, and then user interviews, and then, we propose what we intend to do to a couple of like the agencies we work with and all that, and then start building. That feels slower, but I definitely have ended up on fewer of those, rabbit holes as a result, at least. Yeah.
Right. And in Gravity Kit, sometimes when we have something that we've built and that a customer has asked for, and it just required a little modification to the code, and there's probably like a filter that exists already, we share a private gist with them, and and then if another customer asks the same thing, then we share the gist with them, and we keep track of how often we share that custom code. We turn it into a doc, and if that doc is popular, then we turn it into a product. So there's kind of like an on-ramp into actually adding something to the core product that sometimes we take, and sometimes we just build it and release it and document it. But like other times we try to slow walk it, especially when it unlocks a lot of functionality. It's really dangerous. Like when customers can do things they shouldn't be able to do with it, it is a warning sign for me and the Gravity Kit team. It's like, they're going to abuse this. So let's figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's going to unleash Pandora's box on support and on documentation, on like the whole product.
Cool. I definitely, we do a lot of the same. It's if you have to write code to do it, though, we're allowed to say that's on you now, right? That's I'd love to get to Katie's question here as well. When you get stuff into GitHub, does this work? I'm still learning, folks. How do you differentiate between feature requests you actually plan to implement? So once your team has tracked them, dropped them in GitHub, how do they get escalated to the point of you caring and doing something about them?
Did you have something you wanted to say on that, Robbie, or I can jump? Like you're
probably more. I was thinking too. It's always interesting hearing other people's processes, because you always walk away and go like, oh wow, we're like a little more willy nilly. Like the idea of like tracking the number of people using a certain gist. Like I was like, I'm gonna make a little note here. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think though, like, how does it get from feature requests to GitHub? I mean, the feature requests, or to a planned issue, is like the feature requests are usually they're not like informative enough. Like we'll literally just create, like, once we decide on, okay, this is however we decided, whether it be, I mean, sometimes depending on what it is, it could just be, me just be like, we should do this. That's not all the time, but a lot of times it's team conversation internally and things like that with customers. But once we decide on something, then we're writing up the spec in our regular repo for whatever product it is, and it becomes
That's one
official.
of the great things about like being in charge, is being able to have pet projects and saying like, I really want this. I don't care if you all agree. This is something we're doing.
Yeah, it is kind of nice where you're like, you're just sitting there in the back of your head like, oh gosh, like we should do this. Like, I know everyone's like a little like hesitant for this. At the same time though, too, I think it's good that your team is hesitant too, because you might be like gung ho on something, and you're like, you know what, like that's another temperature check right there. It's like, okay, they're pushing back, so maybe I should rethink my stance on this.
I've been talked down a lot, but not all the time.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
And one of our target audiences at WP Product Talk are people who are just starting out and just launching their new product. And for me, that's the most dangerous point in terms of over listening to customers and causing problems for the rest of the product life. How do you say no? How do you decide to say no? Apple has their 10,000 no's for every yes. They have a video about it, and then they proceed for the next 6 years to be annoyingly bad at things. Anyway, how do you say no to customers, especially with a new product and you want to make people happy?
When we first started, we were fortunate in that we like, not to get into the whole long story, but we started as an agency, started building Beaver Builder as an internal tool. So, all the original feature requests in a sense were like, our other partner, Billy, and myself and Justin, we were sitting in an office and we'd kind of be like, hey, Justin, like, can we do this? Like, can it do this? Like, we were actually like hands-on using the product and building the things that we wanted with it, which is, it's like one of the best ways to do it too. You're not building for someone, you're building for yourself. One of the other benefits I thought I had of like being on a smaller team is like having the freedom and flexibility to, like I mentioned earlier, like the balance between working on things that are maybe more fun versus more like, behind the scenes or nitty gritty. Like getting to work on the fun features is a fantastic motivator, right? Like both for, the team and yourself. So getting to prioritize the things that you want to work on or encouraging people to build the things that they want is a good way to like get things going.
That's like super important too, because like I think individual developers will be more motivated by the things that they want to work on or excited about versus like, I don't really want to work on this. I don't believe in it. Not having the buy-in for sure. Just want to add into that, but also to the point, just to add on to the point about saying no, I think you have to become like comfortable with it. Because I know definitely there's that like fear of like trying to make everybody happy in the beginning, and you're trying to get off the ground, you're trying to get sales, and you're like, oh, I don't know, like I'm just talking from my own personal experience. Maybe it's me, but there's a little bit of fear of saying no. And unfortunately, like success does bring more confidence, and then you're like, okay, I feel better about saying no. I'm not as worried this guy's not going to fall. But for me, that's saying no is just kind of like getting the confidence and being okay with it, knowing that, not something bad isn't always going to happen.
And it can help a lot too, is we all work in a space where even when you say no, somebody else probably does what they're looking for, more
Right.
often than not, you can send them somewhere. Right.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. That's a good way to look at it, actually. I think about that more in terms of the client services, where I was more comfortable sending clients off because I didn't want to work with them. But customers is a little bit more like, oh, like join the family. But that's a good analogy there too, for sure.
And when customers are excited about your product, I've found that they often say, we are going to hire a developer to enhance this, and we'll do a pull request into your product because your product, we love your product, and this matters so much for us. That's an easy way to say, we have accepted pull requests in that way, but we've also said this is so specific that this is not for us, but thank you for making this publicly available. So that's another option out there for people.
And have any of you guys ever had a customer like change your mind? Like, have you said no with confidence and ended up in a position where you built it anyways?
Probably.
I was going to say probably, for sure. We've got some passionate customers.
The slow burn or the brute force.
And sometimes it might be worth it just to make them happy. If this gets into like customer support and stuff, but there are customers that if you piss them off, they are going to be vocal. And they're going to go online and they're going to share their disappointment with the world. And so like sometimes maybe it is a good defensive maneuver to like provide them some custom code just to make them happy, which then unlocks a whole, like it kind of overlaps with the whole like how to fire a customer question. And so Robbie, Justin, y'all talked about having different levels of advanced customization for Beaver Builder because you have different use cases for Beaver Builder, the agency and the site owner. How do you align what you build with these different use cases? Because we haven't really gone into that yet. And like, should they be different products for these different use cases? Or like, how do you think about that? And Ian, I'd love to hear from you as well after.
Yeah, I think we're actually in the middle of some of that right now because like one of the things like with like page builders in general and everything in the block editor sees this is like more styling settings, more settings, more. Yeah, and like it's just like, how do you handle that? Like, I mean, I get some users are fine with it, but then we're like, developers are like, well, you're not building for developers, and regular just like DIYers like, well, you're not building for us, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not building for anybody now.
And then enterprise is like, we want this locked down as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how other products handle that. I know for us, like Beaver Builder 3, we're looking at this thing called the design panel, which is very comprehensive. But it's like well thought out. It's not like we just, all right, we're going to throw all the settings in there. It's a big project, but that's kind of like our answer to the like at least developer side of the equation. I think Beaver Builder really does have like the simpler, like more DIY side where it's like easy mode figured out. So now like imagine like in like Chrome's console, you can edit like any CSS property type thing. Like not everyone's really going to go to that tool. But like our segment that like really wants all this power can go to that side of it. Rest of the people, we might have, more of like kind of WordPress's old way of thinking, the decisions, not options. You might just go to a tab with like, maybe change a text color, a background color, font size, a few things. So that's kind of what we're looking at with like to balance out, the two like major segments that we look at, and not make things more complicated for the users that want like the easier interface, but still have some stuff available for the people who want more power, just not shove it in front of everyone's face.
I think, excuse me, we both got the coughs today. I think the magic of that is like the UX design too. Like that's where good software and products really differentiate is when you jump into the experience, having the intuitive features and things that you want to do easily available, but then also having the power. Like I think Photoshop is always kind of, they've worked to find a balance. I don't know if that's the one I would choose as like a pedestal example of like fantastic UX design, but going in, being able to like crop a photo and you see your tools on the left side that are familiar, but then if you really want to get into the weeds, it's available. I've just started recently going down the rabbit hole of 3D printing and doing 3D design, and like the difference between some of the like old school CAD software and some of the new sort of Tinker style stuff that you can get online. Like it's funny, like getting into a new ecosystem of software that I'm not familiar with and seeing the difference between the intuitive and fun interfaces versus the, the kind of the Photoshops or the kind of clunky old, tried and true, but still like complicated and specific software interfaces.
I want to add on to that too. That's a great point about the UX. And I think it circles back into our whole conversation about feature requests, because it might not be a no. Like we get, like everyone wants all these different settings. It's just like this is not how we want to do it. And to do it the way we feel is appropriate is a massive undertaking. So
Right.
no right now, because we really need to put some thought into this. And that kind of goes back to the UX that you were talking about, want to do it right.
Yeah. And we've come across this so many times at Gravity Kit. And recently also we had this conversation where I said, like, let's just do a setting for now until we can release an actual bigger functionality, because it's going to take months, if not a year, to build what we actually want to build. So let's just add a couple things and then deprecate those, or like hide them when it actually is a UI that makes sense for customers. Like there's the whole concept of like make easy things easy, make hard things possible. And it's easy for us as product builders to just hide another setting underneath like a ... menu and say like, just have a junk drawer for settings and not return to them often. But at Gravity View, like for Gravity View, we have a lot of settings now that need to be kind of rolled up into feature sets that are enabled or disabled or provided user interface, like paradigm shifts away from settings and into functionality being enabled or disabled.
Yeah, just that junk drawer for settings. That's we have internal debates frequently of whether this is a setting or a filter. And if you look through any of our products, you'll find that's where the junk drawer is hiding. It's actually in the snippets repo.
Well, and one of the things I want to do forever since Genesis had this, like, or not Genesis, I think it was a third-party plugin called like Genesis hooks, and you installed it, and it exposed every single list of filters and actions that Genesis exposed. And can't we just have a plugin that is an add-on that exposes all this functionality through a UI, so customers don't have to know how to code, but they can still modify things? And I think that AI is really changing that functionality. Like it'll become possible for customers, as long as we have things properly documented, to write their own code using AI agents, and maybe that becomes less of an issue. How does AI fit into this for y'all?
Dropping the bomb.
I'm contractually obligated to mention AI.
Yes, yeah. I think, okay, so AI has been one. I think I mentioned or kind of touched on this earlier. Like, one of the things we decided kind of early on in this wave was that we didn't want to do was just like put a Chat GPT wrapper into our product, just so we could start saying, hey, yeah, we have AI functionality. Like, for the most part, our customer base and user base is tech savvy, and we know that people are using AI in their workflows. And like ChatGPT, right? Their OpenAI just released their browser, and like one of the like kind of critiques I saw is like, I don't need to have like an AI like ChatGPT analyzing everything I do. Like, I don't mind just like jumping over to a tab and using it when I need it. I don't need it to like be available in every single text field all the time. So like that was something we didn't want to do. We also, and like, we weren't building an LLM. Like, that's not our skill set. Like, we're not going to do that. But trying to find ways that we can use AI, use LLMs to like improve the product experience. Like, one thing that we were discussing is we have a library of designs, of templates, and some of them are we created, some of them have been user submitted, and it's like getting up into the thousands. And we've always had like a bit of a challenge to like surface, having like good tagging and search capability of that like library of templates, and using an LLM to go through and like analyze the images, analyze the text, and be able to say like, oh, this is a design for a restaurant, or this is a design for that. Being able to like automate the process of tagging and providing metadata on some of those, like, that was an area that I thought was really interesting. And ultimately someday, hopefully, getting to the point where you're like using an LLM or AI to generate your, going from that like blank canvas problem where you have a white screen in front of you, being able to like iterate on designs and get from zero to website faster. But yeah, it's not an area we wanted to like dive in just to say we were doing it.
Yeah, that's one of the things hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have a good process for this, but is turning customer support requests into proposals, into documentation. We use Help Scout, and Help Scout is very frustrating for this right now. But we're trying to have a system where we can tag a ticket, and that tag, or maybe at somebody in a note, and that note gets trying to figure out the process to turn in the support desk itself, the customer support ticket into a proposal, and then maybe have the AI automatically develop that, and like, or enhance the proposal, and maybe build out a spec, like build out a branch for the feature, and automatically have it ready for review, that type of thing. But customer support is just one channel. We haven't really dove into other ways to hear from customers. I want to ask you about that, and then move into our recommended best advice for users, for listeners rather. But first, like, customer support is one channel. Can we talk about like what other channels exist, and for interacting, finding out more about product feedback?
I can speak on that. It's evolved over the years, and I think currently like the big channels for us is we have a Slack channel, a community Slack channel. We've got a Facebook group. It's social media based. Like recently we've been investing a lot in our YouTube channel, and we just did that major release recently, and it was interesting to me that like I think for the first time, the YouTube comments were like, we had the most comments and feedback on YouTube, whereas that was never the case before. There was an era when like Facebook's algorithms were really pushing group content, and they were really encouraging groups and people to, like it was surfacing content from groups and people's profiles really aggressively. And so for like a long time, our Facebook group was like the go-to channel where we would get the most feedback. Twitter is sort of hit and miss. Sometimes something will catch on Twitter and you get a lot of response, for better for better or worse. Like it tends to like not be the content you want to have caught on fire. But yeah, it's like another interesting point, I guess, for us is like a lot of those communities were originally set up by our users. Like we were really fortunate that someone one day was like, "Hey, I set up this Slack group." We're like, "Oh, cool!" So we embraced that. We embraced people, creating these communities, and then we would surface them within our marketing materials and whatnot, and then just like spending time in the places where we were getting the most feedback and letting that evolve sort of organically.
Ian, what about you? What does Kestrel do for different channels?
Yeah, I mean, I will say as a absolute cheat code for any of our users, if you just go to the WooCommerce marketplace and submit a feature request on the listing, that gets emailed to all our devs, and half the time they build it by the time I've even seen it. So that's like a
Nice.
Cool.
skip the line situation. But honestly, it's the thing I struggle with most is getting the feedback from the customers we don't have yet. I'm actually very active in like our WooCommerce on Reddit and a couple of places like where people are just complaining about the underlying product, and what can we solve that we aren't already considering is what I'm trying to find through basically the same social media channels as what I think Robbie alluded to there. Yeah.
And what we're doing at Gravity Kit is we have some automated outreach after a product purchase, also after renewal, and part of that is have a talk with me and we can have a one-on-one conversation, because one of my biggest fears in terms of our customers and being able to hear from them is that not everybody wants to send an email or write a text, like submit a form or participate in Facebook or Twitter. Lord knows that there are reasons why they don't want to do that. So I wanted to allow for multimodal communication, and part of that for me was having a one-on-one consultation call, and I learned great stuff by being able to actually reach out to customers and talk to them personally.
I customer interviews 3-4 times a week over here as well. Just any chance.
How do you get those interviews scheduled?
Well, I have a calendar link that our support team is encouraged to hand out as many times as they want, but also that's spilled out to places as well. And it's very restrictive where my availability is, but it's enough that I don't mind if people use it at least. But no, I love to just, especially when you get to talk to somebody who is in an agency or a dev who's used your tool, but they haven't embraced it yet. You learn the things that they don't even know are feature requests from those conversations.
Yep. And you learn why they haven't installed your plugin yet, even though they bought it 2 weeks ago. Like that's important to know as well.
Or they have 47 sites and you're on one of them. Tell me
exactly. More. How do I get on all your sites? Is a great question to ask whenever you're talking to a customer. Yeah. All right, well, let's move into best advice. Robbie, what's your best advice for listening to product feedback without overburdening and overbuilding?
Best advice. I mean, if you're in a place where you are listening to product feedback, like you're in a pretty cool spot. A lot of people build things. Okay, I remember learning to program. I remember way back in the day, I was doing like Visual Basic programming, right? And then later on, I learned about PHP and this idea of like being able to program things that were on the internet. Like you didn't have to get people to download something and install it. You could just send them there, and that was I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like if you have someone using your product, you're in a really great place. I think listening. Okay, yeah, maybe here's a good piece of advice, right? Like if someone is sending you an email or reaching out to you with an idea, there might be 10 other people that have that same thought that aren't taking the initiative to reach out. And putting yourself in the position to get feedback, like in-person events is like one of the places where we probably get a lot of unprompted customer feedback, just kind of doing the hallway track and meeting people and talking to people. But yeah, putting yourself in the position and trying to get opportunities to hear from customers as much as you can.
Justin,
That's
what's your best advice
trick.
for listeners?
Yeah. Well, I probably, it's personal to me and kind of the journey I went on, but I just say like, take your time, and have conversations, both internally, group conversations. Those are great with our team. But also, one of our other devs that I work really closely with, like, after all that's said and done, I'll be like, all right, what do you really think? Just on the side in a DM. Customers, again, like Robbie said, we're really fortunate to have our public Slack, and that's a good place to DM with customers. But yeah, just take your time. You don't need to rush into it. Have a lot of conversations and take it from there.
I'll go next, and my best advice is to follow up on what Justin said. Put it aside for like a week. I know it's easy to say, okay, I'll build it for a customer now, or like, let's prioritize this. This customer is absolutely right. Stephen King famously writes his books and then puts them in a drawer. I don't remember for how long, but like for 18 months or something, then he comes back to it and rereads it, rewrites it. Like some things need time to marinate. And I agree, Justin, like the urgency is there overall, but isn't there in a specific case, I would argue. Ian, how about you?
For myself, I would say whenever you're, deciding when to build, you define what the perfect version of a thing should look like, and then release the thing that's 10% of the work of that first.
Right.
There's
that great meme of like skateboard, and then like the iteration from an MVP into a car.
And you need that dream of what it could potentially be to justify doing even that 10% of the work, but you want to put it in the hands of users before you, really double down on an idea. And, yeah.
Well, that's a wrap. Robbie, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you both online?
WPBeaverbuilder.com. Justin and I both have the kind of a random assortment of social medias. Like I mentioned, I'm on Twitter here and there, and yeah, maybe at the next WordCamp or PressConf.
Yeah, come to PressConf, y'all. That's where it's at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are back on November 12th. We're taking a couple weeks off to discuss Black Friday, Cyber Monday, with all the WP Product Talk hosts. Hosts only show where we're going to share our best advice the whole show, because boy, there's a lot to do for Black Friday, isn't there? Special thanks to Post Status for being our green room. If you're enjoying these shows, please do us a favor and hit like and subscribe. Subscribe to our podcast on YouTube. Subscribe on your podcast player. Share it with your friends. Reference the show in your newsletters. And don't forget to tune in again next week. Bye.